Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is an updated, comprehensive e-bike buying guide for 2024. I'm going to be laying out the top 5 bikes at different price levels, power levels that right now I would buy. And let me just say that my criteria is that of an average person. I use my bikes for general use, getting around town, commuting, also having fun, and above all else, I look for good value. I want to get the most power, range, suspension I can for the dollar spent. So that's my criteria. If you're buying a bike just to take it on mountain bike trails on the weekend, then this list may not be as applicable to you. Now, I've been saying for a long time that I think 60 volts should be the base even on more affordable bikes. And for the first time ever in 2024, this entire lineup of bikes I'm going to be mentioning, the minimum voltage here across all these products is 60 volts. In case you don't know, a higher voltage battery gives you more capacity because the total watt hour is a calculation of amp hours times volts. So usually a higher voltage battery has a higher overall range, and it's also going to be more responsive. It's going to be more peppy and have a higher top speed because motors have an RPM per volt rating. So essentially the more volts, the better. And we're beginning at the $2,000 price point. Yes, you can go cheaper. However, right now, I really wouldn't recommend a close friend to buy something cheaper than $2,000. I think the value there is a lot less because you're going to be stuck at 48 volts, a basic 750 watt motor. And again, I just wouldn't recommend that to a close friend right now. Instead, I would recommend to save up a little bit longer and buy the Wired Freedom at $2,000. Now, this bike should not be a shock to anybody watching this video. I've reviewed that bike a couple months back. There is a new version that's just ever so slightly better, mostly in terms of the rear suspension. The new model is a little bit better here. But the real selling point of the Wired Freedom is the electrical system. All 3 components, the battery, motor, and the controller. So as promised, the battery is 60 volts, 20 amp hours. That's a pretty large capacity overall. The controller here is also very powerful. It's a 40 amp controller, and that enables the motor to have 2,400 watts of power at its disposal. So the bike was extremely peppy, fun to ride. The maximum speed was, let's say 35 plus. If you're going slightly downhill, I was able to get my unit to 40 miles per hour. But the acceleration was very adequate. The bike was responsive, peppy, and I find that to be more important than just raw top-end speed. Okay, but the Wired Freedom is a pretty obvious choice. The next bike up here is going to be a surprise to a lot of people. Last year, I would have said the X-Class or the Rev 1. Something that's 52 volts, peak power of 1,300 watts, comes in at around $2,400. But again, I wouldn't recommend that today to a close friend. Instead, I'll point them in the direction of the Roadrunner. Now, yes, this is kind of a weird looking bike. It's actually like a scooter bike hybrid or like a seated scooter. And if that's off-putting to you, there are advantages to this layout. So of course, being smaller is just more nimble, easier to store in your garage, but it's also low key. So a cop, most likely, this isn't a guarantee, won't really look twice at somebody riding this little scooter thing, even though it doesn't have pedals and it can go extremely fast. So this little seated scooter hybrid thing is a dual hub motor system. Each motor is 2,000 watts, so that's a peak theoretical combined power of 4 kilowatts. And the battery is even bigger than the Wired Freedom. So again, 60 volts, but instead of 20 amp hours, as found in the Wired Freedom, this is 30 amp hours. And again, just looking at this little scooter thing, you would never expect this to have this level of battery capacity and motor power. That gives this scooter, or whatever you want to call it, it gives it a top speed of 50 miles per hour. And the range, I believe it's also advertised at roughly 50 miles. Although if you ride it fast and aggressively, as you're probably going to want to, the range is going to be less than 50 miles. But even so, let's say 40 miles, that still greatly outperforms the aforementioned X-Class that last year I would have put on this list. And man, I just love seeing technology progress like this. It makes me so excited for the future. Some other things I really like about this product. So this comes with tubeless tires, which are significantly more puncture resistant. You're less likely to get stranded or flats, which is a pretty big problem with e-bikes. I really want to see the industry shift towards tubeless tires. I mean, personally, I've gotten way too many flats. It's becoming like my biggest problem. What is this person doing? They had their left blinker on. But yeah, this thing is tubeless, and I just want to point that out. And finally, when it comes to the price, this thing is $2,600. That is not bad in my estimation. Now moving on to one level above this, I think the next obvious choice here is the Teleria XXX. Now this is more of a dirt bike. It's in that legal gray zone. You're taking a risk in riding this on public roads. Although somebody at my gym rides this bike, I see it parked outside all the time, and in person the thing is very slender and small. It's the size of a bike, which I would imagine helps out with getting away riding it as a bike, considering it's the size of a bike. But Teleria at this point is very well known for having a whole lineup of very high quality, high performance, epic electric dirt bikes. And this is their entry-level model that's the smallest, least powerful, most affordable. It comes in at $3,000, so a small jump over the previous option here. And for the extra price, you're getting still a 60-volt battery, but the capacity is taking yet another 10 amp hour bump. So this is 60 volts, 40 amp hours. And being that this is more of a dirt bike, we have a mid-drive motor configuration, different than the previous two, which have hub motors. And the peak power here is 6 kilowatts. So between those three bikes, I think those are easily and clearly your best all-around options and value for the money. All of them are 60 volts, super high battery capacities, especially when compared to bikes just from 2 years ago. And the performance is off the charts. We're talking 40 miles an hour plus on all of these bikes. But if you want something even more powerful, the next leap you have to take is to go to a 72 volt battery. And here, I gotta say, I've been loving my Solar Eclipse 2.0. I've recently reviewed on the channel. If you guys haven't seen that video, I'll leave it linked somewhere now. Go check it out. At this point, there is diminishing returns, so this is double the price of the Teleria XXX at $6,000. And I wouldn't say it's double as good as the Teleria, but it certainly is a massive improvement. So the power jumps all the way up to 10 kilowatts. The controller has a peak output of 400 amps. And the battery here is just massive, 72 volts, 45 amp hours. And again, to get the overall capacity, you multiply both those numbers together. And aside from just the raw specifications, I love the build and ergonomics of my Solar Eclipse 2.0. So sitting on it, it's super comfortable. Just the way it's set up, it just fits my medium-sized body perfectly. It's also constructed out of carbon fiber, so even though it's way bigger and has more powerful than the Teleria XXX, it weighs almost the same. So the power to weight ratio on the Solar Eclipse is off the charts, and that makes it a ton of fun to ride. With this kind of power, it's certainly a dirt bike / motorcycle, and luckily you can register this. So it comes with a VIN number, mirrors, all DOT approved parts. So through that lens of electric motorcycles, that actually makes this one of the most affordable electric motorcycles on the market right now. Now, to finish off this list, I'm gonna show you guys a product I've recently came across that I think is just so epic. So if you guys recall, the second bike I mentioned here, the Roadrunner, it's kind of a hybrid between a bike and a scooter. This product takes that to the extreme. It's called the Mosta. It's a European, I think like French company, so it's kind of hard to get your hands on. You have to import to the United States if you want it. It's also crazy expensive. I'll mention the price at the end here, but I've never seen a product this unique before. We have upside down mountain bike forks, great suspension. The entire front just is a mountain bike, but then the rest of it is a scooter with an extremely wide deck. And yes, there is a seat option, and that's clearly the way I would order this myself. So with that seat, this is essentially a bike that has a flat deck in front of you instead of the usual kind of frame of a bike. And the reason why I like this is because it's the perfect spot to place large items if you want to haul stuff around. For all of you guys that use a bike to get around full time, you know how difficult it is to carry large items like, say, a TV. In my experience, a rack, whether in the front or the rear, it's really not great. A backpack is the way to go for carrying items, but you have a size limit. But ever since I got my scooter, I discovered that you can just place large items on the deck and just hold it in between your legs, and it's a great solution for adding utility to these vehicles. So that's why I prefer having this scooter deck and the rest of it being a bike. But this product also brings the power with it. So surprisingly, this has almost the same power system as the solar Eclipse. We're talking a 10,000 watt motor, a 400 amp controller. It's literally the exact same as solar Eclipse now that I'm thinking about it. And the battery here is 72 volts, 45 amp hours, with the option to get a second battery, doubling the capacity to nearly 100 amp hours. Only downside with this amazing product is the price tag. It's around $9,000, which is just absolutely insane, even considering the huge battery. The Solar Eclipse has a similar battery and it's only $6,000, but I still wanted to mention it to you guys because I think they're really doing a lot of stuff right, and hopefully competition come in the future, kind of copy its design a little bit, offer a cheaper price point. And once that happens, I will be buying one of these things immediately. I just think it's the ultimate PEV. But as of right now in 2024, that is my top 5 list of the best PEVs you can buy right now. I think it's clear that the performance, the value here is just off the charts, especially compared to just 1 or 2 years ago. And if I was to recommend a bike to a close friend right now, it would be one of these bikes depending on their needs. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.